All right, let's talk about these 400s. We are back. This is day 2 of the USA Outdoor Championships. The 100-meter semis just finished off. 100-meter final is a little bit later. By the time you're watching this, it'll be done. But the 400 meters, the heats occurred for both the men and the women. And remember, prior to the meet, because there weren't enough entries, of athletes in a bunch of events, they reduced it. So there's no quote unquote heats. It's now semis to finals. So only 2 rounds. And let's dive right in. I'm going to start off actually with the women, then move over to the men. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, very comfortable in the third heat, running 49.59 seconds. She controlled the race. And I think we've spoken about this at length. And I say we as in myself and other people as well, where Sydney is able to have a level of control, against her other competitors that few athletes in history are able to do. So no matter what pace she's actually running, it's almost like everyone else adjusts to her. And she looks super comfortable. Like, just being honest, she looked extremely comfortable going through her heat. Relatively strong outside the blocks, but then in the second half, the second 200, maybe about 150 to go, that's when she really picked things up. Comfortable 49.5. Of course, she's on pace for sub 49, but the question is, how fast? Will she be able to get that American record in the final? Will she be able to run 48.70? It's not as easy as you think. We've seen her run 47.4. 47.74, 47.75. So she's close, but we'll see if she actually does get it in the final. Lena Irby-Jackson, shout out to her. She also qualified automatic Q with a 50.59 behind Sydney. She, of course, changed coaches early this year, moved back to her former coach who worked with her at Georgia and brought her to a sub 50-second performance all the way back in 2018. She now has gone under sub 50 on 2 occasions this year.
No pressure or anything, but I did make a pretty good change. I moved to Nashville. I'm training now with Althea Thomas, the head coach at Vanderbilt. She was my coach at Georgia. I ran 49 with her, so if I'm looking for those times to drop, I'm going back to what kind of made sense for me.
And I think she's on pace to potentially do that in the final. Now, whether it's enough to make the team, it's a whole different question. So we'll actually see how that does pan out. But after that, the other 2 semifinals, this is where things got hot. First semifinal, Quincy Hayes, Aaliyah Butler, Rosie Effion. 50.76 for Quincy Hayes, 50.77 for Aaliyah Butler. So both of those two to the line. Quincy Hayes is a veteran of the 400 meters. We saw her win the 2021 Olympic trials to make the team to Tokyo. That's where they had the whole debacle with the 4x4. She made the 400 final. She couldn't run the 4x4 heats. All that stuff happened. But she's going to the final. Absolute veteran. You also have Aaliyah Butler. She is probably the second best 400 meter runner behind Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone this year. We saw what she did at the Monaco Diamond League, cooked right behind Marlita Paulino. We saw what she did at Prefontaine, finishing right behind Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, NCAA champion. So she probably has the most consistency behind Sydney this year in terms of, she has more consistency, but Sydney of course is a favorite. So I think Aaliyah is maybe a little bit more, comfortable going into the final, even though she did finish second here.
It helped me a lot just to know that I was invited to go overseas to run in the Diamond League. It just boosted up my confidence a little, so it was an amazing experience.
How was that maybe different from going to the Olympics and competing with the pros there last year?
I just put it in the same category in the Europe with a big stadium with a lot of people screaming and stuff. Yeah.
Also, Rosie Effion, she gets one of the time qualifiers, running 51.01. Maybe not going to be as strong to be able to finish top 3, but she's made the 4x4 team in 2023. So Rosie Effion could be in that conversation to, make the relay team again. So after that, last semifinal for the women is where we saw Isabella Whitaker get the win in 50.07 seconds. Very commanding win ahead of the field. And it's similar to her and Aaliyah Butler. Those two are probably the most consistent across the board. We saw Isabella Whitaker. She won 2 Diamond League races. She finished 3rd place at the Prefontaine Classic. So I like where she's at. And this was a very, very strong win for her. But Britton Wilson is slowly but surely getting better and better. 50.25 seconds for 2nd place. She ran 51 seconds early in the year. She ran 50.5 seconds a few weeks ago down in Tennessee. And now in this semifinal, she runs 50.25 to qualify into another final in the 400. Shout out to Britton Wilson. spoke to her afterwards. I'll put the clip here, but she said that, you know, she was still dealing with injuries at the top of the year. So she had a slower kind of return to the track, but now she's back, she's healthy, and she's ready. And she did say she actually does want to run the 400 hurdles again and maybe might want to double. Here's a clip.
Honestly, just time. I didn't really have enough time to kind of get back into hurdling. I want to, just not right now, but I hope I can next year.
Okay, so you want to get back into...
Absolutely, I love the hurdles.
Would you ever envision yourself, I know this is maybe in the future, but like doing a double one day?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. I love the double.
So, I don't know. Britton Wilson, she's on fire. She might make this team, yo. She might make this team. This is more competitive than I thought. Shout out to Alexis Holmes and Rachel Joseph. Both of them got the time qualifiers, 50.42 and then also 50.67. So they're safely going into the final. But I know Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone, she's the favorite here. Aaliyah Butler, I like her, but then, she's just Quinair Hayes. Shout out to Quinair Hayes, but I think Aaliyah Butler has a little edge there. But then Isabella Whitaker and Britton Wilson. And then I can't forget about Lena Irby-Jackson. Like, it's going to be a competitive team. But y'all know my picks already. So let's talk about the men's 400 now, where this wasn't as competitive. I think this was a little more chalk for the most part, but we did see a surprise. In that first heat, Bryce Deadman winning it in 44.34 seconds, ahead of 5 guys out of this heat all qualified. Demarius Smith, Caleb McRae, Justin Robinson, and Paul Dedowol. All of them qualified into the final. Bryce Deadman, he has been a gamer, 2023 USA champion. He's made the Olympic team last year on the relay, similar in 2021, 2022. He's been here so many times. And speaking to him afterwards, he was like, I spoke about how he did very well at the top of the year, had ups and downs, but then came back up, to where he's at now. He said he didn't even know what happened. Here's a clip.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the hell was going on mid-season. I don't know what the hell was going on. Shit, that's my question too. Honest to God. But honestly, just trusting my coach. I remember I had went to him saying I was kind of panicking midway through the season when I was running the times I was running. And he just seemed so calm and cool about it. So I was like, shit, if he chilling, I need to calm down too. So that's how that was. He kind of fixed a strategy within my race, told me where I was running too slow. And we just adjusted from there.
So I'm always rooting for Bryce Deadman. He is one who's a gamer, and he's proven that he can compete with the best. And we saw what he did. Y'all remember when y'all came, well, we'll talk about that in a second. But y'all came at me. But shout out to Demarius Smith. He's kind of not a newcomer, but he competed for Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. Someone fact check me. But he was a 200 runner, kind of a short sprinter, moved up to the 4. So he's making it into the final here. Caleb McRae ran 43 seconds earlier this year, but we gonna see. Justin Robinson gets that cue, and then Paul Dedowol. Shout out to Paul. That's my man. I know he's from the Bronx. I think he's down in Arizona now, but shout out to Paul. He's been a gamer for many, many years. Now, Heat 2. This is where we got some conversations to have. Vernon Norwood comfortably through 44.78. Genova McIver comfortably through 44.92. After that, we didn't have any qualifiers. Remember, the 3 qualifiers came from that first heat. Here, Will Sumner and then Quincy Wilson. All eyes were on Quincy Wilson and what he was going to do. And I think this was, I don't know, it's impossible to say. Now, through the mix zone, he just walked through. So he didn't stop to talk with anybody, so don't know exactly what might have occurred. But him and his coach were preparing him to make the team at USA's. Think about it. They had run fewer races through 2025 relative to last year, right? Even though he was still in high school, they were running fewer races, preparing him because he was more than capable of making this team. But unfortunately, he just looked relatively flat from the start. Like, he didn't have that kind of more explosive first, 200 that he might usually have. And he didn't have that strong second half either. It looked like in the last 110, 100 meters, he looked like he might be, putting a little bit more on and giving it a challenge, but Quincy unfortunately just did not have it, and he faded all the way back to 4th place and did not get that automatic qualifying spot or a time qualifier, only 45.39. And I'm going to be very, very honest, and I'm going to be very fair with y'all. You know that I'm more hesitant about picking NCAA athletes as well as high school athletes for my team because I do speak to experience. Some of y'all said, okay, Bryce Deadman, he just lost to Quincy Wilson, at the race a few weeks ago in Tennessee, and he lost last year at that race down in, I think it was at Florida. right, in between USA's and Olympics. But I don't want to say like 100%, this is why. Like, no, I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is I do feel there's a slight aspect of why I do value experience. Someone like Bryce Deadman, who has been here before, but not only that, he's faced the ups and downs of a season leading up to USA's and been able to become a US champion, been able to make the team, at least in the relay, to go to Olympics, World Championships, et cetera, et cetera. That's a different level of experience than someone like Quincy Wilson, who's still in high school. Of course, he's made the relay to the Olympic Games last year, but maybe hasn't dealt with those full trials and tribulations. Even the aspect of him adjusting his season and running less frequently, maybe that's a significant change for him relative to previous years where his body wasn't ready for it. These are just hypotheses, right? Obviously, I haven't spoken to Quincy Wilson, haven't spoken to Coach Joe Lee, and again, I'm not gonna come here and say it's not that, because no one is 100% right, no one's 100% wrong. Quincy Wilson very likely could have made this team, but it just didn't go his way. So hopefully we'll see him back next year. He's still, a junior, right? He's still got a whole year of high school left. So shout out to Quincy and what he was able to do here. One more heat of that men's 400. This was a stacked heat. Ja'Cory Patterson, Chris Bailey to the line, 44.63, 44.81. Both of them looked comfortable going through this semifinal. Ja'Cory was on the outside in lane 9. Chris Bailey was in the middle. And, they were in the mix zone. Both of them were talking. They were like, that's their dogs, right? That's both of them. Chris Bailey, I spoke to him, and he actually said that he would have preferred 3 rounds of the 400 as opposed to the 2 that they had to cut it down to. Here's the clip.
I wanted that extra round, just to simulate what championship's gonna be like, and also test a lot of us. I feel like a lot of guys that race today, they haven't ever ran 3 rounds of a 400, and so I feel like if one of those guys that doesn't have that experience makes the 400 team, kind of gonna be a little culture shock, especially if they have to run the 4x4 as well. So I feel like it just would have helped everybody, but rules are rules, so just gotta roll with the punches.
I actually think this is very interesting because it's almost the idea that I guess there's 2 levels where he feels confident about his ability to make the team and to go through 3 rounds, but then he also almost feels some worry about not being able to send the best team. Because think about it, if someone makes the team based on 2 rounds at USA's, are they going to be ready to go through 3 rounds at the World Championships, potentially make the podium or not? But then even if they don't, potentially run on the 4x4. That's a different level of, experience that you can't get. And USA's does prepare you for that. I know some people, have their ideas of maybe we should cut things down. Chris even was like, it's the rules or whatever, but I think it's an interesting thought process for sure. So Chris Bailey, Ja'Cory Patterson, they're going through. Those 2 probably look the best to me. They probably look the best to me out of all the guys. Even though Bryce Deadman did have the fastest time, I still think Ja'Cory and Chris might have looked the best. But I'm sticking with my top 3. I'm sticking with Chris, Ja'Cory, and Bryce Deadman. But that is the 400 for both the men and the women. It's just the heats. Tomorrow we're going to have the finals. It's going to be hot. It's going to be exciting. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.